for this workshop, we have one of the most iconic and legendary artists on the island. His career on the island is very long. He started back in 1995. He's the owner of Viva Music, started with his own party, Viva Warriors at Sunkies, and he is no other than Steve Lawler.
Well, I didn't really decide it, to be honest. It kind of, the way it all happened was I just started going out to, actually the reason why I went to an acid house warehouse party was because I looked too young to get into a regular club. To going into a regular club, they would turn me away and say, you don't look old enough. But going to a warehouse party, they wouldn't turn anybody away. So that was the first reason why I ended up going to one of these parties, and then I experienced the music and the lights, but the one thing that really hit me was the atmosphere, which is brought on by many things, but that was the one thing that made me sort of go, wow, what the hell is this, you know? Well, it came about by somebody had a mixtape of mine that came on holiday and ended up partying, like you say, with the resident at the time, which was Jason By. And he heard this and he was like, you know, who is this guy? And she said, it's a friend of mine from Birmingham. So I came out here on holiday and she said, bring your records with you. So I came and I played just once, and the owner of Cafe Mambo instantly offered me a residency. So that's kind of how it happened, which was really organic and natural. But the good thing about Mambo is not only, in those days, it was where the whole industry used to go. Everybody that worked in the industry would go to Cafe Mambo. So I was kind of performing in front of a lot of industry peers at the time, promoters and magazine journalists, what have you, which I wasn't really fully aware of. But one thing that it did do was it really toned my craft as a DJ, because I was DJing for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what that does is you really begin to understand your music, begin to understand the position of a DJ. You're providing people soundtrack, and it's not just about what you want to do. For me, it was more about look at what I was playing to and play to this scenario, give people the best soundtrack for what they're currently doing. So in the daytime, it was trip hop, sort of downbeat, Balearic sort of music. As it got to sunset, it would be ambient. And as it got into nightfall, I'd play deep house. So I kind of structured my DJing to make people's experience better. And that's ultimately what a DJ is you're giving people an experience and making their night better than what it could be. From playing at Cream in Liverpool with Darren Hughes, when I finished that residency, we started a club in London called Home. And then to coincide with that, they started Home at Space, which was on a Sunday. And when that happened, the DJ booth was actually behind the bar. No one cared about the DJ. The DJ was behind the bar over here in the corner, and the terrace was full of tables and chairs. The Space was all about the main room. But from a number of DJs, we kind of made the terrace. Eventually they started clearing the tables out, they started clearing the chairs out because everyone just stood on top of them. You know, we kind of created what the terrace was. We did that. It wasn't ever meant to be a party out there, it was meant to be a place where people chilled out. But because of what we were playing and how we sort of programmed the music, it became more important than the inside. So they had to get rid of tables, and chairs started to move inside a space, and you know, everyone started coming outside. So, you know, really early days, and then they changed the way it was set up, and they actually built a proper DJ booth, and yeah, and it was an incredible time. The difference between then and now is now DJs need to play Ibiza. They never had to play Ibiza before. Just ones that did tended to do better, because you're playing to a real targeted audience in Ibiza. Everybody that comes to your show in Ibiza is there for the music and to party. There's no stragglers. You know, you go and play in a club in Milan or in London or whatever, you might get 10% of those people that are just on a night out. You don't get that in Ibiza. People are here for our music. So your audience is fully targeted. And if you can capture that audience, then your career will grow outside of Ibiza. Because all those people are from different parts of the of the world, and you're playing to a real international crowd here. You're not just playing to Italians or to Spanish or to English. You're playing to all of them. If you do well in Ibiza, your pull as an artist is better in all these individual countries, for obvious reasons, because you're gaining fans from different places in one go. And now Ibiza is more a case of people see that they need to play here. So Ibiza now is more important than ever. So for you guys to get an opportunity to play here as a resident is ridiculously huge. It does definitely help your career to know people, to put a name to a face, so to speak. And I'll give you an example of this. It's probably a question you're going to ask, is getting demos to labels. We used to have all these different input sources of getting demos to Viva Music. And then we started getting about 500 demos a week. Then I stopped listening to them because I don't have the time. I've got my own studio work to do. I've got my own touring schedule. I've got to go through music myself that I play. And there just wasn't enough time in the day. So I stopped going through promos. I employed somebody else in the label to A&R things. And what I know, and this is the same for all labels, if you have a relationship or you see a DJ that you really want to be on their label, it's best to go to their gigs and try and get friendly and get in with their crew. Then give them a promo or then give them a demo. And I can guarantee you it's more likely to get on the label than it is you putting it on an email and sending it to this demos at whatever label. The reason why I started the label was because I think personally it's really important to do your own thing, to really have your own sound, or whatever sound, even if what you like is very similar to somebody else, it doesn't matter. But just do what you really like. Don't try and be Hot Creations because that is a label of now, or don't try and be Cocoon because that is, don't try and be something or try and fit into something. If you don't fit into anything, then make your own. And I think making your own family, your own sound is actually more important and will get noticed quicker. And that's what I did with Viva Music. It was more a case of, if I can just sign music that I love, that is very suited to what I play, which is why Viva Music is a dance floor label. It's not a label that puts out obscurities or deep, this, that and the other. It's a dance floor label. It's a kind of targeted at the music that we play. And by starting the label, it really sort of, this is what we're about, sort of thing. It's your platform. Don't purposely try and find a unit. Just do whatever it is you love. Like, if you really like this, and even if no one else is really doing that, then great, that's great, that's really good. If you're doing something you really love and it's similar to that out there, then just fine tune it to make it a little bit different. But ultimately, if I've seen people, pretenders that come along and they try and, be, the next Vision Quest or the next Cocoon. And it doesn't work, because it's transparent, really. Like when a sound becomes popular, and believe me, they've been through them all. I've been through them all: techno, progressive house, tech house, tribal house, deep house. I don't see myself as playing any of those. I play all of them in my own way. I play all of this kind because I don't really give a shit about genres. I just do what I do. And if you do that, you create your own sound. Then people find it very difficult to tag you into something. But when you get a sound that becomes trendy, all of a sudden, everybody makes this kind of music. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter anymore. And there's, only the first few people that do it are the ones that will stick out, the ones that did it first. All the ones that follow, you'll notice, nothing really comes of them because it's just copycat sort of generic, and it happens a lot. So if you do your own thing, and sometimes a little bit of luck is needed, the right thing at the right time. If that happens to you, then boom, you're there. Okay, so my setup, I'm running Tractor with the CD players as controllers. I'm using these as controllers for my sample decks that I have set up here, the remix decks. One of the things that I do is I always play loops over everything that I play, because then it kind of defines tracks that I like more into my sound, into my style of playing. And I can change that depending on what I'm, like I said earlier, if I play a smaller room or I play a festival in front of 4,000, 5,000 people, if I change the loops that I play over it, it can change the energy of that track. You're still playing the same track, but maybe it'll make it a bit tougher, which sounds better when you're playing to 5,000 people. You don't need to do that when you're playing to a room of 500 people or 1,000 people. You can strip it back. So I use loops over everything. These are the remix decks that I use the F1s for. I use this controller for literally selecting my track and the effects that I use up here, which I already have mapped out. So to give you an idea, let's put this one. Now, as well, what I will say is this whole conception about syncing and not syncing, it makes no difference because beat matching is actually the easiest part of DJing. It's really not difficult, especially with CD players. With a CD player, everything works on 8. So, you know, +8 on here is 1 BPM. So if you've got a track here, 24 and 23, to play this on 24, just push it +8 and it's the same. It's the simplest thing. It's like, beat matching is really simple. So I do use sync a lot of the time because that way I can keep more creative with what I do with loops and all the rest of it. So what I would do is I'd loop this towards the end and then I'd just literally. So now, so I've still got the past rhythm of this track playing. So you kind of you can keep your set really seamless this way, and it really makes sense. And you can add elements to the loop and take elements out of the loop to really define your sound throughout the whole set. And you can do this on the F1s with many, many, many loops. So, I mean, I will say that sometimes I don't sync. It depends on, because some tracks I put in here I take off vinyl. So when you burn a track from vinyl, there's no consistency in the tempo. So you have to mix it without sync. So you can't sync them anyway. But in some cases, when you're mixing really fast and you've got a lot of things going on, a lot of loops going on, it's just better to sync. It's just easier. You can beat match it anyway, but then you can be more creative in thinking what loops to play next to what tracks and what loops to grab out. I've also got a bank of loops which I will just use, which I know if I'm playing a festival or whatever, I know which bank of loops to go to because I made them, they're tougher. So things like that, you can really adapt the way you play to what you play to by using loops. Otherwise, if you don't use loops, you're just defined down to the track that you play. And that's it, that's what you've got. And it's also more difficult, especially in today's market, to make your own sound when you're playing a set full of other people's music. Unless you're playing a set full of your own music, well, in that case, you're almost playing live. So it's a way of really defining what you do.
It has been a pleasure to have you here. I think it was really inspiring and really interesting for all of us. We wish you all the luck with Viva Warriors. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great success. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Lawler is really smart guy. He just got a lot of techniques. Yeah, he just showed us things I never thought about. So yeah, it was great.
I mean, it's one of the biggest figures in electronic music, and it was really nice to see him standing in the same room talking about music and how he plays, how he arranges music.
Like in 10 minutes you find out that there is actually no limit in mixing. It's just creativity, and he shows you the way.